My name is Lori Cook, and I'm the Director of Educational Outreach with the American Wood Council. And today I'll be talking about the Special Design Provisions for Wind and Seismic 2021 edition updates. This document we do affectionately refer to as SPDWS, so you probably will hear me call it that several times throughout the presentation today. Here's our course description. I'm going to assume most of you read it when you signed up for the class, so I won't dwell on that too long. The learning objectives, we'll be talking about some of the major changes in this edition of the SPDWS compared to previous editions. The previous edition, most recent edition before this being the 2015 edition of the standard. We'll talk about the new format for shear wall and diaphragm capacity tables, as well as the new tables for out-of-plane wind resistance for OSB and plywood wall and roof sheathing. And then we'll discuss the new provisions for cross-laminated timber or CLT shear walls and diaphragms, which are brand new to the 2021 edition. So the kind of top 10 changes, if we were to try to condense them into one list, is presented here. We have they revised the Chapter 3 tables of uniform load capacities for out-of-plane wind loads. We've reorganized Chapter 4 to differentiate between our traditional sheathed wood frame systems and the new cross-laminated timber or CLT systems. We've added some language to clarify some of the reference conditions related to these design value tables, some of that being related to the geometry of the nails as well as the type of framing you can use in these assemblies. And we've revised the format of the diaphragm and shear wall nominal unit shear capacity tables. So there used to be separate capacities listed for seismic and wind designs, and we've gone and combined those into one table now, regardless of what types of loads are being designed for. We've added some new provisions related to the vertical distribution of seismic force resisting system strength for structures in high seismic conditions, seismic design category D, E, or F. And these are provisions related to a weak story. We've added some new equations for calculating the deflection of cantilever diaphragms, and there's two new equations we'll talk about today. There are new provisions, a reference to ASTM D7989 for seismic equivalency. So essentially, if you have a wood frame shear wall system that is not described in SPDWS, ASTM D7989 gives you an alternate path for determining design capacities that would be in line with the SPDWS factors of safety and things like that. There was a new strength reduction that was added for shear walls in a very specific condition. They're shear walls nailed with 10D common nails, and they have hold downs installed on the inside face of the end posts. We revised the equation for perforated shear wall shear capacity adjustment factor. That's the C sub O, the C sub O factor. And then we, as I mentioned, added brand new provisions for the design of CLT diaphragms and CLT shear walls. So we'll start today just talking about a little bit of background on the standard very briefly, as well as the code acceptance for this standard. So the 2021 SPDWS is referenced in the 2021 edition of the IBC in section 2305. So that's for lateral design and construction of wood framed structures. Some scoping information is provided in section 2.1, and this hasn't changed. So the scope is the same as it was, and it does have provisions both for ASD and LRFD designs. And if you go into the standard, you'll see that it has 4 chapters. We're going to be dealing primarily with chapters 3 and 4 today. Chapter 1 is just a flow chart that basically tells you if you're in the right place, and if you're not, it tells you need to go somewhere else. Chapter 2 is general design requirements, scoping, and some definition of terms. And then Chapter 3 and 4 are really the meat of the standard. So that's where we'll spend the bulk of our time today. And we'll start in Chapter 3 with some of the changes here. So when I talked about the top 10 list of changes, I mentioned that we've revised these capacity tables for sheathing resisting out-of-plane wind loads. So we have a separate nominal uniform load capacity table for OSB and for plywood.